Hello, my friend. It is I, Hamon. Thank you for the invitation.
Every one of you are pieces or aspects of the One. And as the One looks at the universe, it sees all the individual pieces of itself having many, many experiences in many bodies. And you begin to feel that family of consciousness. You see your galactic family in all the shapes and all the sizes, all the skin colors, all the everything. All aspects of the One. And as you move from this realm of the One, through many portals, through many galactic centers, you see and feel these other beings who also know they are aspects of the One. And they are so excited to meet you, to meet another species that recognizes who it is. You invite these beings to connect with the humans, your human selves, here in the Earth plane. So as you travel back to Earth along this beam of light, some of them may follow, excited to join the family reunion.
Lyssa?
Ruben?
Here we are again.
Yes.
Another episode of Interview with Ed. This time we're channeling Hamon from Sirius. Been looking forward to this for a while. And we're in beautiful Sedona. We have lovely horse energy with us.
Yes.
So what's new with you? We just came from your contact retreat.
We just finished the contact retreat. Yes, it was an amazing experience. We had groups from all over the world there, Japan, Hong Kong, Australia, US, and it was a cosmic celebration.
Yeah, and this was my first contact retreat that you did here in America. We've done 2 in Japan.
Yes.
Amazing experiences, amazing footage as usual.
Yes.
And it's been a week. How's your week been after that, decompressing?
It was very hard to decompress because there was just so much post-retreat stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just been a really intense energy happening, I think, all over the planet right now.
Right.
I know when I've spoken to other people, they've talked about it also. So it just seems like everything's speeding up. And I know we've been saying that for years,
Sure.
but it's still speeding up.
It's not going to stop, is it?
It's not going to stop. So we have to learn how to surf the wave, I guess.
Surf the wave.
Yeah.
Surf the wave of change.
Yep.
That's James, right? Is it James? That's his,
Yes,
that's
yes,
his company.
yes.
His shirt. One of the contact retreat members has
Yes.
a T-shirt, Surf the
Yep.
Wave of Change,
That's
in the company. Well, shall we bring Hamon in and see where
all
that
right.
goes?
Yes. So maybe I should just say something about Hamon.
Yes, please.
I've channeled Sirian energy here and there, starting in around 2003. I've always found, for me, and the way it manifests with me, to be very electrical, often combined with weird thunderstorms that happen.
Oh.
We're not going to have any of that today, I don't believe. But really only maybe 5 years ago, this particular being, Hamon, came through for the first time, mostly in connection with retreats out in nature, surprisingly.
Right.
He speaks a lot about ancient and traditional Sirian practices that were passed to Earth people, and prefers to be in this type of environment.
Perfect.
So I think, I don't know what your questions are. We shall
right.
see. That's going to be a big surprise, but
Yeah.
you'll see that his main focus is really the awakening of the consciousness on the planet.
Perfect.
All right, so here he comes.
Excellent.
Hello, my friend. It is I, Hamon.
Hello, Hamon.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Got a number of questions today, and I want to start off with, what was the clap?
For the channel's body and the way that she integrates energy, it is a way to create a type of alchemy within her energetic field that, you might say, opens a portal or opens a tube, so to speak, that allows our energy to be assimilated more easily.
Like a sync up, in a sense?
Kind of, yes.
Okay. Because I do the same clap to get all my audio synced up for all the different devices they have to...
You can say it's kind of like a way to sync my energy field with her energy field and create a third energy field that allows for the communication to take place.
Excellent. Thank you. The Sirian energy is sort of a newer thing, she just said, for her as channeling. Why now? Why the Sirius energy now? What's happening now for this to come out?
That is quite a good question, because much of it has to do with the crossing point that you've called on your planet 2012, in which your solar system's relationship to galactic core is that you've moved now into a cycle of integration, which is more of a feminine cycle, as you would understand the term, instead of a more dissociative cycle or disintegrated cycle, which has been the last 13,000 years. So because of that shift in the energy of humanity, you can say it was the signpost for us, Sirians, to return and continue the work that we've done in the last cycle, 13,000 to 26,000 years ago.
So the energy now it's more accessible for the Sirian energy to come through.
That is correct. The name, for example, that I have chosen for these interactions through this channel, the word Hamon, in our ancient language means integration. So it is an expression of the energy of your time now, and how it is also connected to the work and the promises, in a sense, we have made to humanity to help to facilitate the integration process.
I see. So in terms of density, what density, we know Sasha's in 4th density, what density would Hamon be residing in?
Same idea, 4th density consciousness. You can say, however, because we understand humans like hierarchy in order to understand things, you could say that my people, my civilization is slightly more advanced or slightly more integrated than Sasha's, but still 4th density, for we still have a body.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask, you still have a physical body, and do you fly around in ships?
Yes, although that word is often misunderstood because of the idea of how ships can move from liquid quantum states to solid mass states.
I see. Yeah, that actually, I'm going to jump right into a question that has been lurking in my mind that I think Sasha actually brought up at the retreat. The understanding that we have now of ships, of flying saucers, of galactic star systems. As we're moving through time, we're understanding timelines. We're redefining our reality almost on a daily basis now with new scientific discoveries and everything else. So maybe you could clarify if by the time we get to your density, it's going to be a massive change. Like our whole concept of what ships are, of how transportation, of Star Trek, like this whole idea it's going to be different, right?
Yes, but there is a very important understanding with this idea that we wish to shed some light on.
Yes.
If you look back in your time frame that you know of on Earth, such as the 1950s, the different types of contacts that were experienced at that time were with very structured ships, very 3D kind of ideas of ETs in spandex suits and the sports model ships and all of that idea.
Right.
However, as consciousness itself begins to evolve and shift, you no longer need that type of imagery to understand what is happening in the universe. So it is not that we are presenting you with different things. It is that your consciousness is much more able to conceive of and accept and resonate with the ideas that are closer to the truth of what extraterrestrial contact really is. Does this make sense?
It does, and I feel that for my own understanding, expansion of this, not limiting it to guys in spandex in the sports models, but then going into these other realms of, you know, the fairies and the elementals and nature spirits, and just expanding into all of it where it's not. And I feel that maybe you guys are even maybe closer to that idea in a sense that it's more fluid. I think in the human interpretation of like elves and fairies and Lord of the Rings type stuff, that feels more magical in a sense and more fluid and not as rigid with structured craft and these kinds of things. Am I on the right path?
That is correct. And also you are touching upon the Sirian relationship with your planet, which is the spectrum is very wide. From the idea of beings such as myself and my people who you would associate with the stars, to other Sirian beings who, in a sense, stayed on your planet when many of us returned to the stars, and in a sense became one with your planet, inner Earth, things such as that. So the idea of contact then, especially with Sirian energy, has a very, very broad spectrum.
I see.
We will also say, though, that as human understanding of the quantum nature of reality grows, your experiences of extraterrestrial contact are also going to shift more into the quantum realms, which you are already seeing beginning to happen now.
Right. Hence the contact retreat we just had, where people are going not so much physically, but consciously into the ships, having the experiences, connecting to that dream world a little bit more closely, it seems.
That is correct, because it really has to be that way. If contact is only focused on the 3D, the things you can touch, then in a sense you lock yourselves into a paradigm that does not allow your consciousness to move beyond the more structured reality into its more organic nature, which is more of a quantum expansive nature instead.
Right. And I'm assuming, like the Pleiades, there's many planetary bodies in the Sirius A-B system harboring life. And am I assuming that correctly?
Yes, and many dimensional realities, but also please understand that once we became spacefaring, we go out to many, many different colonies and space stations and such. So it goes beyond the star system simply itself.
I guess I'm assuming that having the two suns in the sky, that kind of imagery, and we've seen other science fiction stories that have, in Star Wars and whatnot, different two suns or three suns in a sense in the sky that give a much different experience than we have on Earth with our one sun.
Yes.
Anything to elaborate on that?
Not so much to elaborate, except to say this is something we have said in the past, but looking at star systems from the point of view of out there,
Right.
from our perspective, your sun is part of the Sirian system.
Right.
So the relationship then is very, very close. And that deep, ancient memory is stored within the holographic memory of your people and our people as well.
So almost like Earth, or I'm sorry, our sun could be a Sirius C?
You
type
could say that, yes.
Interesting. In our history, we have the Dogon tribe that has talked about Sirian contact and beings of almost like a aquatic or dolphin type nature, and they had masks and maybe even spacesuits to keep that liquid in. I'm not sure. There's different interpretations of those legends. Anything to say about the Dogon tribe?
Again, we point to the spectrum we have talked about. Some of those beings are more earth-based, some are more water-based. So some of that is indeed a memory. It's a little bit mixed though, the memories. It's not so literal. It's a little bit more symbolic. However, the Dogon tribe is tapping into more of that symbolic memory of some of those beings from ancient times.
Right. Like they even had they even knew about the two suns before our scientists even
Correct,
could
yes.
tap into that.
Correct.
How about Egypt or some of these other ancient civilizations, Atlantis? What was the influence or relationship to Sirius and those civilizations?
Well, it's a very good question, but the answer could be very long.
I see.
So we are going to try to summarize. Basically, as we were previously saying about the 26,000 year cycle, you go through cycles of disintegration, which is the last 13,000 years, and you go through cycles of integration. You are now entering the new cycle of integration. So extraterrestrial contact on your planet historically will mirror, the contacts themselves will mirror the galactic energy depending upon which part of the cycle you are in. So within the last 13,000 years then, while there has been contact, especially when you go back to the early dynasties of Egypt and you go back farther and farther into Sumeria as an example.
Right.
You're talking about what you would consider to be the post-fall of Atlantis, something such as that. Those time periods were the time periods when you were, in a sense, in terms of the galactic cycle, falling into disintegration.
Right.
So what you're going to find during those points is that while you might see peaks of civilization in terms of technology and maybe language jumps and jumps in art and jumps in tools and practices and things such as that, there's a lot more going on because of that cycle of disintegration. This is where some of that we've talked about in other venues, the dark Sirian energy came in as well. So you have the dark magic practices and things such as that in those cycles of disintegration. So historically, you're going to find so many different influences, and it really depends on the particular point in history and the particular groups of consciousness that you're asking about. It can seem like a mishmash, if you know what we mean.
Sure, yeah.
But does that address your question?
It does.
Looking back then at the cycle 13,000 to 26,000 years ago, which would have been an integrative cycle. And we're looking at the last phase of that cycle when those who were on the earth knew that as you call it, the fall was going to happen, back into disintegration. This was a time where many of your extraterrestrial family and many Earth people were working together to try to, in a sense, stop the fall from happening or to slow down the fall into forgetfulness.
Right.
So you're going to find during that time period, while there might not be a lot of historical proof of this, although if you look hard enough you will find it,
Sure.
it was a kind of what you might call a high time of civilization in an attempt to, in a sense, energetically boost you through that cycle of the fall so that you would awaken before it happened, so to speak. We speak a little bit dramatically in order to just illustrate the point that we're trying to get across.
So Atlantis was sort of an accelerated evolutionary period?
Yes. In the attempt at awakening consciousness so that you would not fall into another sleep cycle.
Right.
However, energy doesn't lie, so to speak. So if the mass consciousness is not integrated to a certain level, and if there is still what you might call shadow influence that is not being integrated and worked with, then another cycle begins again. So that was a little bit of what you call a race to the finish line, so to speak, if you understand the metaphor.
Sure. But now that we're entering the new cycle, we can pick up where that old cycle left off, in a way.
Yes, but it's important to know that it's not a circle. You are not
Sure.
repeating the same thing over and over again. It's more of a spiral.
Right.
So as you go into this cycle now, you're going to find that you are at a different place than you were the last time you were in this cycle.
Right. But there were reminiscences of the last cycle, for example, maybe the crystal skulls that
Correct.
were left as gifts for us to pick up.
Correct. There are those types of gifts all over your planet. You can include the crystal skulls. You can include the places such as Stonehenge, stone circles. You can include the pyramids that are all around the planet, etc., etc., etc. Those are places where knowledge is preserved. And when we use the term knowledge, we're not talking about, as you would know, book knowledge.
Yeah,
we're
academia.
talking more about places or portals where wisdom can be accessed as a reminder to trigger your remembrance of who you truly are.
Exciting times.
Very exciting, my dear. Very exciting.
Would you say that the serpent energy is also associated with the Sirius energy?
Yes, your planet has used the symbol of serpent or dragon or snake as a way to give an energy signature, if you will,
Sure.
to the Sirian energy, as it has helped to develop your awakening process in the past. However, as with everything, there are certain elements that sometimes can hijack symbology and use it for their own purposes. In terms of your biblical references, we do believe this was written about just a little bit in the Prism of Lyra book.
Right.
But generally speaking, the whole Garden of Eden story is a metaphor for the choices humanity has made about whether it would awaken or whether it would go back into another cycle of forgetfulness. So in terms of the dark Sirian energy, though, we know that there are probably people watching this video that want to understand what we're referring
what
to.
that is, yeah.
So we're going to say this very, very simply.
Yes.
It's written more about in the new book, The Golden Lakes, for people that want to research that. But very, very simply, this idea of duality is the nature of creation. But when we define duality, we are referring to the idea of like a battery, where you have a positive charge and a negative charge. One is not good and one is not evil.
Right.
They simply require both charges to create an energy source to run your device or to run the reality, so to speak.
Right.
However, when a civilization moves into a third density type of experience where polarity is magnified, that neutral duality becomes polarity, which is more an experience of value judgment than it is an expression of neutral duality. So in that case then, what is happening now on your world is that you are moving into that time of integration, as we were previously saying, which means that you have to revisit the idea of polarity as well as duality, learn the difference between the two, and integrate the shadow and the light within you. This is a type of Sirian alchemy that my people did very, very long time ago for our awakening as a species. And it is what is being required of you now. It is why on your planet you are seeing all of this darkness coming out into the light. And we're not just talking about out there in the politics or in the religion, but we are also talking about within you as well, for your internal is a reflection of the external. We know that you are seeing this playing out on your planet all over the place, whether it is politics, whether it is religion. However, it is very important in this crucial time to understand that what you are seeing out there is connected to what is happening within. This is true for everyone. The shadow and the light, or the two dualities, are needing to come out and be embraced and integrated and balanced. This is a process. As you enter fourth density reality, every civilization goes through this. Therefore, in this time more than any time, it is the most important time to do the inner work of the integration of those energies within you.
And I'll say hopefully, but not, I don't even need to use that word. Unlike the Atlantean times, we are going to pull through this one. I'm pretty confident.
No comment, my dear.
All right.
However, we will say that the biggest difference between this time and the Atlantean time is that in the Atlantean time, most people were concerned with the outer projection and not looking within.
Right.
This time, a great many people on your world are doing the inner work also, which is going to make the biggest energetic shift.
Right. Excellent. Well, I have confidence we're going to do this.
We do too, my dear.
And it's, as I just said, it's exciting times. So glad to be here. There, in past, at one of the contact retreats in Japan, Hamon's come through and talked about the serpent schools.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit about those?
Yes. We have called this the School of the Nine Serpents. Basically, serpent is a metaphor. It is a metaphor meaning gate, meaning that it is a gate through which spiritual training will take you where you must pass to integrate yourself on the way back to the one. So much of this is written about also in the new book. We're not meaning a commercial. It's simply that we can't go through the whole thing here. However, the 9 schools in that way help you work with your inner energy, and most especially helping your ego make the transition it needs from a 3rd density version of ego to a 4th density version of ego, which is very necessary because the 3rd density version of ego cannot survive within a 4th density type reality. So serpent in that way is meant merely as a metaphor for Sirian gateway.
Right. And that's also perhaps why the Sirius, like you said, since 2012, the Sirian gateways have been sort of opened a bit.
Very much so, yes.
So these schools are being revisited.
Yes, very much so. This ancient school was one that was given to early humans by Sirians and Pleiadians in the very ancient days, but it also had its version before Earth. Because all of these teachings come from what we call Vegan mysticism, all the way back to your very ancient Vega and subsequently Lyran forefathers as well. This school was also very prevalent on Mars when Mars' civilization was thriving. So it is meant to be a roadmap or a guide to help an awakening planet. If the work is done, awakening happens.
And there's no need to demonize the the serpent.
Not at all, unless that's what turns you on. Yes.
Yes, I guess some people get turned on by it. Speaking of Mars, what is Sirius? Is the energy? I mean, is there anything other that we haven't touched upon with the serpent?
Mostly that in the ancient days, Mars, before the, well, this would be very, 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 very ancient days. My people were very young at that time, so we were not necessarily visiting Mars in that time. It was more Vegans, more Lyrans, Orions, different types of energies. However, there's a lineage, if you will. Because Mars was very connected to Vegan lineage, Sirius very connected to Vegan lineage, we are connected in that way.
I see. So the Sirian energy is there as a lineage, but not so much the people themselves.
Correct.
I see.
Correct. We were too young at that time.
And what's the relationship to Sirius and the Anunnaki?
You asked about Anunnaki, we believe, accessing her memory in the past.
I did, yeah. Anunnaki's comes up a lot.
All right. So our definition then is simply that Anunnaki is not a species, as has been misunderstood on your planet, but is more referring to those ETs, if you will, that came from the heavens and were seen on Earth. So they were labeled Anunnaki, simply meaning children of Anu, or those from Anu, etc. And that would include Sirians.
Would Sirians have a little more of an influence in that grouping of terms or energy than others?
Two things to remember. One, my species was younger then.
Yes.
Less mature.
Right.
Two, there were more factions at that time.
Right.
Darker ones and lighter ones that had good intentions, let's say, but were still immature.
Sure. Like a young Earth. In
Exactly.
a sense.
Exactly. A little bit older than you,
Sure.
but
they still had space-bearing
yes,
technologies
yes,
and these kinds of things.
but still not matured spiritually.
Sure. And maybe through us, they learned some lessons.
Oh, yes.
And
My people have many lessons courtesy of you. Thank you very much.
glad to be of assistance.
It's how we help each other.
Yes, it's great. So you mentioned Vega lineage, Lyrian lineage. What's the relationship to Sirius and Zeta? Is there a lineage there? Is there a connection on that side of lineages?
Repeat the question, please.
Well, you mentioned that there's a lineage that Sirius has with Vega, and then going further back, perhaps to Lyra. Is there a Zeta lineage connection in there somewhere?
Yes, there is. And have you ever seen the map?
I have.
All right.
I'll insert it here for our audience to see.
So the map that you are seeing at this time is a very rudimentary map that discusses your galactic lineage relationships.
Right.
So in order to answer your question, we'll just state very simply that if you think of Lyra as the progenitors, and then the very first separations were the Lyran groups and the Vegan groups. And the Vegan groups had a tendency to go more into the mind, to separate out the emotional body. And remembering that the journey that you are meant to take, that you have chosen to take, that we have all chosen to take, was a journey into separation.
Right.
So this is not something negative or bad. It's simply the way energy moves because it's the type of journey you chose to take.
Sure.
So as the Vegan lineages became more and more focused on the mental body, some branched off and became even more super focused on the mental body. So that's where the Zeta species came in was as being one of those species that became the supermental species from the Vegan lineage. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, I think with the map that'll help
Yes.
kind of explain things. I've been working on a documentary and having a lot of experiences with the plant medicine ayahuasca. And in my first experience with that, I saw a cave, I saw a chamber of snakes, serpents. The serpent energy was coming in very clearly. And a lot of people have this imagery when they partake in these ceremonies and this medicine. Is there a technology like ayahuasca, or is this technology from Sirius? And is there a sort of two-part question? Does that technology exist in your world?
First of all, we want to make a comment about the cave of snakes.
Oh, okay.
Because it is, on your world, you have often come to understand serpent as being Kundalini energy.
Yes.
What we're going to say about that is connected to that kind of, but it has to do with the integration of dualities. So those who might experience that type of cave of snakes is a type of snake initiation, if you will, which is, we could claim it and say a Sirian initiation, which can be sometimes depending upon the person, but more so it's an initiation that has to do with beginning to bring together your own dualities so that you can start to actually release polarity. Now, the plant medicine is actually something that is indigenous to most planets within the galactic family. They have their own different versions of it. And we've found historically, galactically, that it is used particularly when a civilization is stuck somewhere, so to speak, which is where we don't want to say your civilization is stuck, but you are having some issues with releasing and integrating polarity. So that technology is helpful. However, we have to say it always must be done in a sacred way with guidance by someone who is much more experienced. And it is never meant to be continued in an ongoing way.
Yes, I concur.
All right.
I've had those experiences, and I've seen the magic of the medicine and the power it has had with specific people to awaken and to help reconnect their hearts and their minds.
You're going to find at some point that your civilization will not even need it anymore.
Sure, yeah. And when I first partook in the medicine, I thought, oh my God, everybody should try this. And after a few ceremonies and understanding the energy, I'm definitely right now, I'm like, it's not for everybody. Definitely want to make that clear. And especially I've been sort of letting people know who are already very much in the heart space and connected, that they don't need the medicine at all. It's just really to help those going through some tough times, might be in the mental space. It's great now we're finding in our science, it's great for people who are suffering from PTSD and deep depression and these kinds of things.
Yes.
So it's a tool, wonderful tool. Going back to some of, not to dwell in the darkness, but to go back to some of the dark energy of Sirius, we have in our history and in our lore and storytelling, we have, dark cults and wizards and sort of this evil energy. And there was this trauma related to this, or I guess in past channelings, I've heard that there's a connection with Sirius and some of these darker energies, and then you guys had to actually integrate them in a way, or accept them, or not run away from them, I guess. Can you elaborate a little bit on?
Sorry, are you referring to the human student's experience or Sirian history?
maybe Syrian history first, and then we can connect it to our traumas with that energy, because I think it overlaps.
Yes.
And how you, I guess I want to make the connection. Oh, he's right here. Yeah. Charlie, you're in our shot. Yes. Oh, yes. He's integrating.
Well, we are very comfortable, so we are
Yeah.
going to keep
Yeah.
going.
No, go ahead. This is.
So, in my history, as most civilizations, there's resistance toward integrating the darkness.
Right.
So within my civilization, we had that time also. And that was when the split happened in my civilization, where some of us began to awaken and others of us began to spiral more down into the darkness. So when it became time to interact with your planet, you had Sirian energy coming from different points of view, let's say.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Hello, my dear. Little butt here.
Little donkey
yes?
butt. Yeah.
Donkey butt. Talking about dark energy, yes. All right. Cosmic joke. Butt of the joke, yes.
Absolutely.
So that energy did come to Earth. There's no victims. It's just part of the way energy moves while you are experiencing a third density reality. So in your time then, as you were falling into darkness, that was the time when the Sirian shadow energy came. So the question would then be, how did you on Earth experience that energy? And we could say that many, many humans experience that energy through mystery schools. Whether it be Egypt, whether it be, well, West or East, Babylonia, any place on the planet you could possibly imagine, there was the infusion of that dark energy when humans refused to look at their own dark energy. Because that's when it gets called in. Because it has to play out. This is energy dynamics.
Right.
So during those time periods then, that's when you started to see wonderful high consciousness mystery schools, but also others that were more darker, that maybe preyed on the weaker.
Okay. So there was a light and a dark mystery school.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, sometimes in terms of mystery schools, people might think they are experiencing one that is of the light.
Right.
Because they cannot see their own shadow.
Right.
So they do not know they are in the shadow, so to speak. But all of that, you might say karmically speaking, is part of the process of awakening. So when we first shared this information with the first group, which would have been in Japan 1 year ago, so 2018.
Right.
Many of the people in the audience there connected with traumatic past lives that they had remembered
Right.
from those time periods in those ancient schools, or being abused by teachers, whatever it was.
Sure.
And we were encouraging them that that is going to come up now.
Right.
Because it needs to come out, it needs to come to the light. Even self-forgiveness needs to happen for those who maybe judge themselves for making what they might deem to be wrong choices.
Right.
So does that address what you...
Yeah, and I mean we have that story seems to repeat itself. We have on this planet, we've had cults, or even in our mass pop culture now, we have the Illuminati, and it's become sort of a buzzword, and everybody's running scared. It's like, oh, and the idea of symbolism, there's, like you said earlier, symbols can be used for dark, or they can be hijacked for...
You see whatever you're looking for.
Exactly.
You will always find what you're looking for, and that is a trap. So humanity, or sections of humanity, are busy looking for all those signs of that stuff and
Right.
rooting out the evil. But that is a black hole that never ends. So how do you pull yourself out of that black hole?
Right.
And that is where a lot of the Sirian teachings come in, and it is part of the teachings of the School of the Nine Serpents. Simply, very simply put, if you use the metaphor that you as humans in third density are actors on a stage playing a part, in third density, you don't realize you are an actor on the stage playing the part.
Right.
So you become lost in it. You become lost in the darkness. You become lost in the joy, whatever it is. You get lost in the drama.
Right.
But as you begin to shift to fourth density, you start to have glimmers of awareness, such as, oh, this isn't really real. It's not that it's not real. The chair is real.
Right.
It's where you are putting your consciousness actually defines the reality that you experience.
Yep.
So when you begin to remember that you are playing a role on a stage, then you can actually begin to cultivate a dual awareness where a part of you can also simultaneously be in the audience watching, so to speak, the play on the stage.
Right.
And this kind of dual level of consciousness is the most important step in the shift in consciousness, because eventually you will be able to maintain that more bird's eye view, one consciousness, so to speak, watching the stage play for longer and longer periods of time until you fully understand in a visceral way that you are that consciousness, not the consciousness on the stage. So this is where the individuals that are lost in the dramas happening on Earth will need to unlock from that in their own time,
Right.
to remember who they really are in the more expansive level of consciousness.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy of video games, and we're sort of in our mass media and our consciousness, we're creating these games to be so visceral, but yet we are playing the game. We're playing the character moving through the movie. Before we'd go to the movies, but now we're actually integrating the virtual reality experience, the game. We're making the choices to move the character along.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
It is so interesting that you have created all of these things on your world, such as smartphones,
Right.
to teach you about layers of reality and perception.
Right.
For when you get lost in your smartphone and 20 minutes have passed that you have lost forever,
Right.
that is an example of being lost on the role on the stage.
Lost in the hyper focus of these, the dark, whatever it is, the demonizing the serpent, or the making the symbols evil, and going on
Exactly.
these tangents of
Exactly.
fear tangents.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes though, it's fun to get lost in.
As long as you are aware
Right.
that you are doing it and you can step back,
Right.
it's part of the experience of the shift from third to fourth density.
Yep.
Eventually, deeper and deeper into fourth density, you don't get pulled into that anymore. Reality becomes very different.
Could you explain a little bit of this reality? The polarity game, the mystery schools, the dark, and integrating that in the relationship or similarities that Earth now is having during this time, I guess, that Sirius also had to integrate its darker self
Yes.
in the relationships.
There is definitely a parallel between where your planet is at right now in its integration process and where my civilization was during the similar time of our shift between third and fourth density. So this is one of the reasons why for us to guide you at this point in time is very appropriate. So we were talking about how the group in Japan was the first group to receive the information about the dark Sirian energy, and it triggered the memory
Right.
of the mystery schools that were painful
Right.
experiences people had had in the past. It is not that you need to remember all of these dark experiences.
Right.
Simply though, if there is a type of a wound that has to do with victimization or has to do with self-forgiveness for making choices that you have made, this is the time to begin working on that. For you have to step off the victim-perpetrator polarity game, so to speak.
Right. And that's, we were talking about earlier, where we're trying to hyper-focus on, you know, the evil deed, so to say, the taking the focus off of that is sort of making, switching from the polarization to a non-polarized, like acknowledging it for what it is, but not getting caught up in it. Is that, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. You can acknowledge it because, as you know, repressing things only builds up the energy charge inside.
Right.
So it's a very fine line between noticing something is there and refusing to see it, or really, really, really focusing on it. Yes? If
Right.
you really, really, really focus on it, you create more of the same.
Right.
If you repress it, you create the energy charge within you that needs to be dealt with. So then the only choice is the middle of the road, so to speak,
Right.
which is you can notice it is there, but you do not give it any energy. Or if there is something within you that needs to be healed regarding that, that healing will come from your embracing the experience, learning from the experience that you've had, not judging it, and learning from that experience in such a way that the energy itself can be released.
Yeah, and that's for everything in life, from all
Everything.
the situations to relationships to the traumas to, you know, everything.
Exactly.
Wonderful. The you know, the snake is definitely a symbol of the Sirius energy, which we've already established. But often we have this Sirian gate in the summertime in July, and it's associated with the dog star,
Yes.
the dog energy. What's that? Could you go elaborate a little bit more in the dog energy?
Simply the way that we would interpret that is that for humans, the dog is the being in the animal kingdom that is of the most service to humanity. And the Sirian energy, in a sense, plays the same role. Not that we are dogs, so to speak,
Okay.
but that our love and loyalty and commitment to you is the same, which is one of the reasons why that imagery was associated with us, because of our, well, some would say in the past, tenacity. But we have grown and evolved too. So now we walk side by side with you rather than dragging you on the leash, so to speak. A little Sirian humor.
So we would be the dogs in that situation.
Yes, well, what goes around comes around, yes.
Okay, interesting. Well, another animal that's also associated with Sirius energy is the dolphins. And is there, what's the relationship there, and how is that connected to Sirius energy? So we would be the dogs in that situation.
Yes, well, what goes around comes around, yes.
Okay, interesting. Well, another animal that's also associated with Sirius energy is the dolphins. And is there, what's the relationship there, and how is that connected to Sirius energy?
It's a little bit esoteric, we have to say.
Okay.
Because from our point of view, actually the whales have a stronger Sirian connection with you than the dolphins do.
Okay.
But let us explain what we mean.
Yes.
The dolphin energy on your world is a way to introduce you to fourth density consciousness from an indigenous species on your planet. The dolphin consciousness itself, their experience of reality, is very much of a fourth density experience. However, it is still singular, meaning that just as you have one body, so to speak, that you are aware of animating this reality, the dolphin reality is very similar. However, the whale energy represents your beginnings into fifth density consciousness, which represents more group, the beginning of group consciousness. Therefore, when you associate the Sirian energy with the whale consciousness, it is a way for humanity not only to, of course, become accustomed to fourth density energy, but also begin to, in a sense, dip your toe into fifth density group consciousness as well, which really is necessary to fully be able to embrace fourth density consciousness, because you have to kind of also be comfortable with the idea of heading toward group consciousness as well.
In what way? I mean, us humans would probably look at dolphins and whales as being almost the same, other than the size, as far as being aquatic creatures, mammals. What's the difference there between the dolphin and the whale energy?
The whale beings actually can embody group consciousness.
Okay.
So it's it might sound very mundane, but it's one of the reasons why their bodies are so large, as a way to be able to ground such an intense energy and have the brain size as a way to be able to have that conduit of consciousness that can be channeled, in a sense, into the physical reality.
So in a way, they're living portals?
Yes.
Grounding that Sirian energy on the planet?
Yes. However, when we say Sirian energy, we are talking, in terms of whale,
Right.
we are talking more specifically of what we have termed third era Sirian, which is well after the awakening. So it's not singular embodied Sirian energy any longer. It's moving more into the awakened group consciousness Sirian energy.
Almost more advanced. As you guys are upper level or upper echelon fourth density consciousness, humanity's just starting to touch the fourth density. Do you guys have it sounds like you guys have an awareness of these different versions of Sirius energy, these different tiers. Will humans then start to interact with future versions of ourselves?
It's already happening.
It's already happening.
It is already happening, for sure. This idea of the different eras was expressed through the Galactic Heritage cards to show 3 different eras of a civilization. So you have the first era, which is more of the third density, polarized, childlike or young species. Second era is when the awakening just starts to happen, the healing and the integration starts happening, which is where humanity is now.
Right.
Third era is the awakened era. So once you begin to enter the second era and you start opening your consciousness more to the idea that you are part of a holographic reality, then the natural next step is that you start encountering other aspects of you. Whether it's ETs or future humans, matters not.
I see. So a lot to look forward to.
Oh, yes.
The Japanese people themselves seem to have a strong Sirian connection. Could you elaborate on that? Do they have more of a connection than, say, some of the other races or ethnic groups on our planet?
The Japanese do not have more of a connection. Okay. What you're sensing is that because many of these students have worked with Lyssa many times,
I see,
that they're already kind of primed to that energy.
I see.
But one of the reasons why this information was given in Japan first has to do with going back to what we were talking about in terms of School of the Nine Serpents.
I see.
There were many of those schools within Asia and many within what is now Japan.
I see. So it's more of an Asian consciousness, maybe a collective, Asian collective consciousness?
Well, there were schools also all around the planet, South America, North America, Africa, etc. But because of the specific group we're working with, many of them were connected to that energy.
I understand. And many of Lyssa's students in Japan have spoken about channeling Hamon as well, your energy.
Some of them have connected with our energy for very specific purposes.
I see.
For them and their growth.
I see.
We're not you know, flying around connecting with everyone, so to speak. And we don't mean that in an elitist way. It
Sure.
is simply that we are working with different people with different things.
Understood. Thank you so much for your time. Would there be any last final messages for this audience as it's growing and humanity?
Well, there are so many messages.
Sure. And we covered a lot today.
Yes, but we want to say that we know that there is a lot happening on the world that is causing a lot of fear and panic and distaste, let's say, for humanity at this time, and the sense of not knowing what can be done. It's going to seem like a paradox, but what needs to be done is to begin to cultivate the idea of letting go and not doing out there, but going inward now, for the landscape on which to work is now inward. And you're going to start to see that this is much more than just a platitude, but it actually is going to change the consciousness of your planet when you go inward and address the things inward that have not been addressed up until this time on the individual level. Because ultimately you are all fractals of one hologram. And so everything everyone is experiencing is felt by the whole hologram. Therefore, when you do your part, the entire hologram is affected. This is, again, not a platitude, it's literal mechanics. So we are here, your Sirian friends are here, and many, many other friends are here to assist you with this, whether it is to give you a hug or hold your hand and say, go for it, or simply to send the love to you to give you the strength to move forward. My people have been through this. We know. And we do know, unfortunately, that all we can do is support you and love you through it. But with that support and love, and with your fortitude and your amazing character as human beings, you will do what is needed, and you will, in fact, create that reality of love, harmony, and peace that you see on your world, as long as first it is cultivated within. Much love to you, and thank you once again for the project you are doing that assists so many.
Well, thank you for your assistance and for your love. It's much felt, and continuing this journey together.
Until next time.
Thank you. Feel good?
Yeah.
Woohoo!
I was starting to get chilly.
I am greatly honored by your presence this night. It has been many thousands of years since we sat with humans around this lake. And in those ancient times, we talked of the times to come where humanity would forget who they were. We watched your dedication. We watched your willingness to watch the grass grow. We were deeply humbled by your love for this planet. And here we are now, thousands of years in the future from that time. Once again, sitting by the lake. But this time, the seeds that you planted then, they now are sprouting. They will lead you to the remembrance of who you really are. Beyond identity, beyond nationality, beyond planetary identity, but simply part of the one. You are finally on your journey home. And while in linear time the journey may still be a long one, as we sense it, the difficult part is over. There might be some bumpy roads ahead. But, as you say, it's now all downhill. And as you know, when you go downhill, your speed increases. So buckle your seatbelt, hang on, and we certainly hope you enjoy this ride.
UFO ですよ。飛行機じゃない。
ほら。すごい。間違ってない？確かにすごいなんかめっちゃ似てるかも。すごいすごい瞬きしないで見てるけど。あ、来てる来てる。まだこれ。消えた。あ、消えない。あ、まだいる。めっちゃ近い。あ、消えた。取れた。UFO でしょ。
And thank you for spending these days with us.